The Federal High Court in Abuja on Wednesday declared null and void the provisions of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code authorizing the National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, to impose fines on broadcast stations for alleged breaches of the code. Now, the court also ruled that administrative and regulatory bodies cannot exercise judicial powers, delivering judgment in a suit instituted by Media Rights Action against NBC following the Commission's imposition of fines of 5 million naira each on a television station and 3 pay TV platforms in 2022 for allegedly undermining Nigeria's national security by broadcasting documentaries on banditry in Nigeria. Justice Rita Ophelia Jumogobia held that the NBC, not being a court of law, acted above its powers by imposing such fines. The judge commended MRA for its legal challenge of NBC's action and issued an order of perpetual injunction restraining the commission or anyone acting on its behalf from further imposing any fine on any media platform or broadcast station in Nigeria for any alleged offense committed under the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. Justice Ophelia Jumogobia set aside the fines imposed by the NBC on the 3rd of August 2022 on MultiChoice Nigeria Limited, owners of DSTV, Telkom Satellite Limited, TSTV, Trust TV Network Limited, and NTA StarTimes Limited for broadcasting a documentary about the state of banditry and security in Zamfara State, saying the regulator's action was wrong and unjustifiable in a democratic society. And joining us now virtually via Zoom is the Program Director of Daily Trust Foundation, Dr. Theophilus Abba, to discuss this new development. Doctor, welcome to the News Hour. So Trust TV was one of those stations, media organizations fined by the NBC when it let out the August 3rd fine for broadcasting. The title of the documentary was Nigeria's Banditry, the Inside Story. Now, following this pronouncement by the court, do you think this set aside a lot of some of the criticism that was placed on the NBC when it first put out these fines?
Well, thank you very much. And I want to say that this will be the third judgment against the NBC on its attempt to muzzle the broadcast media. In May last year, there was a High Court judgment by Atiku Justice James Okoro, who said the NBC had no powers to impose fines. I think repeating what the judge in today's judgment mentioned, that it is only courts of law that had the powers to impose fines. So it's not the responsibility of a ministry, department, or agency of government to impose fines. That was the first one. Then at the ECOWAS court, it was clearly decided that the move by NBC to impose fines on broadcast platforms over alleged violation of some of his codes amounts to restriction of the freedom of speech, which is contrary to Section 39 of the Nigerian Constitution. So I think, the courts have said again and again that NBC was wrong. Now, when you talk about imposition of fines or penalty, there are other laws, that could be used in order to impose fines or to punish media organizations that violate basic rules. For instance, we have the law of libel, we have the law of defamation, which also covers slander. Slander has to do with anything that is said, which is contrary to the personality of one person or another. So there are already laws in place. So when NBC came up with this code in 2019, saying that it was going to fight hate speech, going to ensure that there are no inflammatory statements, derogatory statements, insults, and even a statement that can cause division in Nigeria. Now, every Nigerian say, no, you shouldn't do that because there are other laws which can handle some of these issues. So we're happy that the media rights agenda, had taken this case to court again and has obtained this judgment. In fact, the media rights agenda has always said that, look, we should be courageous, to take government to court, so that if policies, if laws are not in tandem with the Constitution. And that was what the Rights Agenda has done. And I'm happy that for the third time, the law courts are telling NBC, you cannot muzzle the media.
All right, Doctor, just to mention some sections of the Broadcast Code which empowers the NBC to impose these sanctions, especially fines. So Section 5, subsection 5, paragraph 1 authorizes the NBC to impose fines on or suspend the licenses of any organization in the broadcast space in breach of the Broadcast Code. There's also Section 15, sub 5, which outlines the process of investigation and imposition of said fines. And finally, Section 15, sub 6, which specifies the type of sanctions that could be applied, including fines, suspensions, and revocation of licenses as the case may be. However, how do we now expect the broadcast regulator, that is the NBC, to go about carrying out its regulatory function, seeing that it has been stripped of the powers of imposition of these fines, and also bearing in mind that in most cases, suspension of licenses, be it temporarily or permanently, are mostly an extreme case scenario?
Well, I think we have to go back to the National Assembly to amend that act. You see, because when the National Assembly passed that act, or amended the act, because some of those things were not in the act. You know, it was in 2019 that they were brought into the act of the NBC. So the National Assembly ought to have known that, look, some of these powers being given to NBC contravened, was contrary to the Constitution, sections of the Constitution. If you say NBC should impose a fine, what does the court of law do? You know, if you say, okay, if you contravene this law, NBC has to take you to court, then the court would now say, okay, come and defend yourself, you know, of this allegation by the NBC. Then if you don't defend yourself satisfactorily, then there will be a fine. You know, that is what we expect. Mm-hmm. So, the act has to be taken back to the National Assembly for amendment. You know, you see, if you look at some of the fines, I think there are about 45 of them. You know, NBC imposed fines on about 45.
Doctor, if you can hear me, just a final question. I don't think Doctor can hear me. Most likely a challenge with the connection. Unfortunately, I wanted to ask Doctor what next for some of these stations that have been fined. Will it be okay if they approach the courts to seek legal redress for a reverse of some of these fines, or a refund, if you might add? But unfortunately, Doctor's connection seem to have encountered some form of a challenge.